So we are in the middle of Chaf Amud Beis, talking about the three mitzvahs we do when we get to Eretz Yisrael. Let's go about 15 lines down from the wide lines. Tanya, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Shalosh mitzvahs testavi Yisrael b'chnisasan la'aretz. Three mitzvahs we do when we enter into Israel. Lahamid lahem melech, lahakazar shal malach l'tam b'esa b'chira. You establish a king, you destroy a Malek, and you built yourself a Beis HaMikdash. Ve'eni yodea ezeman techila. Which one should I do first? So kishomer ki yad al keska. So yad al keska milchemes la'Hashem ba'Amalek. So it says here in the pasuk in Shmos that ki yad al keska milchemes la'Hashem ba'Amalek. So Havi Omer lahamid lahem melech techila. This idea of a yad al keska, meaning the case is short for kisei. The first thing you do is make a kisei, so to speak, for the king, and then you fight a Malek. So the first thing you do is a king, and then you do a Malek. The ain kisei ela melech. When it says kisei, it's referring to a king. How do I know? Shinem Rabbi Yosef Shlomo al kisei Hashem lemelech. That Shlomo was all al the kisei on the kisei Hashem. So the king is on the kisei Hashem. Okay, so we do a king first, fine. But do I destroy a Malik or do I get involved in building a Beis HaMikdash? Well, what should I do first? So first clear your path from all the enemies. Then you'll get to the place that Hashem desired, Hashem chose, the Beis HaMikdash. There you see that first clear yourself a path, get Amalek out of here, and then build yourself a Beis HaMikdash. Similarly, we find by David, he says, so when David was sitting in his house, Hashem cleared for him the surroundings. Uksiv v'yomer HaMelech el Nasa Navi. So it sounds like first he cleared a path, and then afterwards it says that he's sitting in the Beis HaRazim. The Ha'aron Elokim Yoshev B'socha Yeriah. It's interesting that we know that David didn't build the Beis HaMikdash, but you see that first you have to clear the path, and then you could be in the place that's fitting to build a Beis HaMikdash. Yeah. Okay. Amar Reish Lakish. We're going a lot about kings, about David HaMelech and Shlomo for a while. So Amar Reish Lakish. B'tchila Melech Shlomo al Elyonim. Very interesting. In the beginning means Shlomo ended up marrying. It sounds from the Psukim themselves, he married non-Jewish wives, and he himself committed idol worship. But the Gemara explains and interprets the Psukim, he himself didn't commit idol worship, but he married a lot of women who they themselves were doing different forms of idol worship, where they brought idol worship into their house, and he didn't stop them, and they swayed his heart. So in the beginning, before he did that, Malach Shlomo al ha-Elyonim. Shlomo ruled over the Elyonim. So what's the Elyonim? So Rashi somewhere else. He says it's brought down that he ruled over not only the world down here. Some say he ruled over all the shadim. So there's this in-between creature called a shade, which is not a malach and it's not a human. It's called a shade, some kind of demons. So he ruled over them too. Others say no, he ruled over a certain even a certain level of angels. He was ruled over, meaning a very very high level. Okay, Shinemar v'Yoshev Melech al Kisei Hashem. So Shlomo sat on the Kisei Hashem. It sounds like he was on the Kisei Hashem, and whatever was under that, he ruled over. So that's called the Elyonim. Ulubasof, after he married these ladies, Malach ala Tachtonim. He only was the king over, I guess the southern hemisphere. No, the lower worlds, not the higher worlds. Shinamar kihu roda b'chol. Pasuk says, kihu roda b'chol aver hanar. He ruled over the whole side of the river. Mitifsach va'ad Azah. So now, what's Tifsach and what's Azah? Rav Shmuel, Chadamar Tifsak B'sof Olam, V'az B'sof Olam. So one of them says it's two parts of the world. Tifsak is on one end of the world, and Az is on the other end of the world. So V'chadamar Tifsak V'aza B'hadi Adadi Havu Yasvu. Or some say that they actually were next to each other. Ukishem Shemelech Al Tifsak V'alaza Kach Melech HaKolam Kulo. Just like he ruled over these two cities which are next to each other, so too he ruled over the rest of the world also. So then, and then we're going to go a little bit through a decline in Shlomo. L'basof l'malach ela al Yisrael, from being king of the whole world to only king of the Jewish people. Shnemar ani Koheles eisi melech al Yisrael. I'm Koheles, you know, he wrote Koheles. I was king of only the Jewish people. L'basof lo malach ela al Yerushalayim. Then he had a further decline only on Yerushalayim. Shnemar tivek Koheles ben David Melech ben David Malach v'Yerushalayim. I was king of Yerushalayim. L'basof lo malach ela mitaso. He's only king of his own bed. Shnemar hinei mitaso. Shlomo. And at the end, he was only king over his stick. This is all I have. This is my portion from all the work that I did. I left my staff. So Rav Shmuel Chadamar Maklo Chadamar Gondo. Some say it means it was his stick. Some say it means I think it was his shirt, his Gondo. Yeah, clothing. Oh.
Yeah, they say cloak.
Cloak. Okay. So now, okay, fine. So that was his. From being the king of the upper worlds to the lower worlds and down, down, down. Now the question is, Hadar or Lo Hadar? Did he ever return to his glory or not? Rav Shmuel, Chadamar Hadar, Chadamar Lo Hadar. I think later on it refers to Shlomo as a Nasi. So if you refer to him as a Nasi, I think that's what it's, then it means he came back to his glory. If you refer that he didn't go back to his glory, so then, when the Navi calls him a Nasi, it means he was a lower stature. He was lower than a king. So man the Amr Lo Hadar. So the one who says he didn't return. So then Melech v'Hedyot. He was a king, and then he just became a regular guy. Uman the Amr Hadar. If you say he returned to his glory, to his kingship, so Melech v'Hedyot uMelech. He was a king, then he was a regular guy, and then he went back to being a king. Okay. Poretz lasos lo derech. A king can go anywhere he wants, that he needs to. I think we said it's machlokas, it's only time of war or any time he wants. He can cut through anybody's yard, their vineyards, you know, their garage. I don't know. Anywhere he wants, he can go. He can make fences. He can break through. He can do as he wishes. Tanu Rabbanan Otzros Malachim Lemelech V'Shar Biza Shabozin Mechtel Melech U'Mechtel Am. So you go to war and you conquer a city, conquer a country, and you have all their spoils. So now, you conquered the other king's palaces too. So all those palaces that you conquered, that goes right to the king. The rest of the spoils that you got, you split it. Half to the king and half to the nation. And even the half to the nation, there's a way how to split that also. I believe the Pesukim talk about it. Okay, so Amarle Abaye l'Ravdim Yivamar l'Ravacha. So Bishlam Otros Malachim l'Melech. I understand why the king gets the other king's palaces and all of his stuff, because Orcha de Milsa, because that's normal. That's normal that a king should get the other king's stuff. Elashar Biza Shabozin Mexal Melcha Mexal Aminolan. But where'd you come up with this ratio of, you know, half to the king and half to the people? Like, where does that come from? So the Chsiv, next page, Ve'im Shechul Hashem le Nagid u le Tzadok. So Hashem appointed a king, and Tzadok it's talking about Shlomo. He appointed Shlomo as king, and Tzadok was the Kohen Gadol. So the verse in Divrei Hayamim puts the two together. Why? Makish Nagid leTzadok, to compare a king to a Kohen Gadol. Okay, what's the comparison? Ma Tzadok mektzalo u'mektzala echav. Every week the Kohen Gadol gets the lechem upon him. How much does he get? Special bread we have every week. Half for him, half to his brethren, to the other Kohanim. So half nagid mektzalo mektzala echav. So to a king will get half the spoils of the country, and half he'll share with the rest of the Jewish people. Okay, but how do you know that a Kohen Gadol gets half? V'tzadok gufim minol, the Tanya Rabbi Omer haisal Aaron u'levanov. So it was for Aaron and his children. Mechtel Aaron and Mechtel levanov. Aaron got part of it, lechem upon him, and his children got part of it. Okay. More about a king, and then a lot about from Shmuel Beis and Malachim. So Lo yarba lo nashim. Okay, so now one of the rules of a king is he can't have so many wives. So Ella Shmones, right? 18 wives. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Marba Hulo, Ubilvad Shaloyu Mesiris Eslibo. He can have as many as he wants, as long as they don't sway his heart. Now, we're going to have two psukim. One is Lo Yarba Lo Nashim. He can't have many wives. And the other pasuk is Lo Yaser Es Levava. He can't have his heart swayed by them. Is that a second negative commandment? Or is that an interpretation of the first commandment? Is that the reason for the commandment? Or that's its own independent commandment? Not because you're interested in having 18 wives. You just no, not because okay.
This one sticks out. I remember.
Good thing your wife's not on Zoom. Yeah, phew.
I remember 18 wives.
Yeah, that's you remember.
The one that
Number Chai is your lucky number. Okay.
You know you come full circle then.
That's right. That's right. 18 mothers-in-law. That's right. So what to look forward to in life. Okay. So Ella Shmona Esrei, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Marbe Hula Obel actually Yebesaris Mesiris Aslibo. They can't sway his heart. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Omer Afilu Achas Umesiris Aslibo Harez Lo Yisena. Rabbi Shimon understands that verse of Lo Yasir Aslavo. It's its own separate negative commandment. It's not an explanation of why you can't have many wives. It's its own independent isser. Therefore, even one who's going to sway your heart is usser. Rabbi Yehuda, he understands that that verse was just an explanation of why you can't have many wives. But to have one wife sounds like even there's a chance she might sway your heart is not going to be usser for Rabbi Yehuda, while for Rabbi Shimon is going to be usser. Harei zu lo yisena. Im kain lama nemar lo yarba lo nashim. So according to Rabbi Shimon, what is the verse saying? You can't have many wives. If you hold even one wife, you can't have. So you can't have even one wife is going to sway you is usher. You can't have many wives. He says that filu ka'avigail. Avigail is a big tzaddikas, and therefore, even if your wife's a tzaddikas, but you can't duplicate her. You can't have more than one. So yeah, that filu ka'avigail. Yeah, you can't have. Yeah. So according to Rabbi Shimon, you can't have 18 wives. You can't have more than one, even if she's a tzaddikas. So that's a stringency that he has. And the other stringency that he has is that as long as there's even one that potentially might sway your heart, that's going to be usher. According to Rabbi Yehuda, so you can have 18. More than 18, we're already worried about it's gonna stray his heart. So you see, people could handle much more back in the day. Their emotional standards were much. Their emotional tanks are much heavier. Yeah. So Lememra. Oh, so now it comes out a very big chiddush over here. Rabbi Yehuda is doing what we call he's being darish time of the kra. He's interpreting the verses and the reason for the verses, and then making a halacha from that. So he's interpreting that it says lo yasir es levavo. Oh, since they're going to sway your heart, we're going to interpret that as the reason why you can't have many wives. Rabbi Shimon, lo darish time of the kra. And Rabbi Shimon here is not interpreting lo yaser es levavo as the explanation of why you can't have many wives. The problem is that everywhere in Shas, Rabbi Shimon is the one that's always darish time of the kra, meaning he takes the verse, gives an explanation for it, and from there applies halachas. Only Rabbi Shimon does that. No one else does that. And here we have the opposite. So now we're going to bring an example in Shas where he's darish time of the kra. The rule is that if somebody can't pay back a loan, you're allowed to take a collateral from them. So you come and you take their coat. Now, if they're rich, lets you take their, if they're rich, then it's fine. You hold it until they pay you back. What if you took their only shirt? You took their pajama shirt. Every night you have to go give it back to them. You can take their nighttime clothing as long as you give it back at nighttime. You can take their daytime clothing as long as you give it back during the daytime. In Almana, a widow, there's a special law about taking her collateral too. So now let's see. The Tanya Almana, Bein Shehianiya, whether she is a widow, she's poor. Bein Shehashira, whether she's rich. Ein Mamashkin, you cannot take collateral from her. Why not? Specific negative commandment, lo takbel beged almana. You can't take the clothing of an almana. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Doesn't matter whether she's poor or she's rich. You can't take it. Period. Rabbi Shimon Omer, no. Ashira mimashkinosa, aniya ein mashkinosa. A rich one you could take. A poor one you can't take. How did Rabbi Shimon get that? Because it says What's the reason why you can't take a widow's garment? Is because in the event that she's poor, you're going to have to enter her house and give it back to her. Her nighttime clothing at nighttime and her daytime clothing in the daytime. What's going to happen then? Everyone's going to think that she's having relations with you. And that's not going to give her a good name. But you only get that if you take it's like, oh, what's the reason for the pasuk? And then you explain it and then come out that halacha. So you have to get back to her. But what's going to happen if you keep going in and out of her house? You're going to give her a bad name. The Amrina and Ma'i Kamar. So Amrina and Ma'i Kamar, Haki Kamar. What does it mean? Like this, from the fact, because you're going to take a collateral from her, therefore you're mechuyev, you're obligated to return it to her, and then you're going to have a bad name for her. So you can't do that. So what do you see from there? Alma Rabbi Yehuda lo darish time of the crow. Rabbi Shimon darish time of the crow. Rabbi Yehuda it says you can't take from an almana, period. No explanations. Oh, why? So it's because you can't take a Now the difference is that we have many svarim like the Sefer HaChinuch famously, maybe most famously, who gives you the reasons for the mitzvahs, right? However, it's a big difference. When they give you the reasons for the mitzvahs, they're only giving you what they say a tam is a reason, also means a taste. They're giving you a little bit of a taste. It's not the whole reason of the pasuk. Rabbi Shimon takes his reasoning and then applies halachas from that. That's only Rabbi Shimon does that. But to try to understand what the purpose of this mitzvah is, what's the purpose of tefillin? That's different than then applying a halacha from that. That's what it means. We're not saying you can't give explanations or understandings of the mitzvah on some level. We're saying to take an interpretation and apply halacha from that. That's Rabbi Shimon's area of expertise. So that's a kasha. Our Mishnah sounds like the opposite. Rabbi Yehuda's darish time of the crow, and Rabbi Yehuda's not, and Rabbi Shimon's not. Sorry, says the Gemara. No, but Alma Rabbi Yehuda lo darish time of the crow, the shiny hacha, the mefarish time of the crow. Rabbi Yehuda in general leaves it to Rabbi Shimon. That's his expertise. Darish time of the crow. You're right. But here, Rabbi Yehuda felt it's explicit. Ma tam. It says he felt the Torah, the Navi, the Torah itself explained the reason for you. Ma tam lo yaber lo nashim. Why can't you have many wives? Mishum to lo yaser es levavo. The Torah itself says in Devarim Yudzayin. I guess you can remember because one less than 18. Right, so it's in Yud 17, yeah. So, or 1 plus 7 is 8, so 18. Okay. Lo yaber lo nashim lo yoser levavo. So it says you can't have many wives, and then the Torah tells you, and you shouldn't have your heart swayed. So that Rabbi Yehuda holds is to him that was very obvious that the Torah wants you to not have many wives because you shouldn't have your heart swayed. Okay. So what does Rabbi Shimon do with that? He should for sure then interpret it over here the way he always does. Rabbi Shimon Amar Lach Michde be'alma darshin time of the crop. I always darsh in time of the crop. However, over here I don't. Why not? Im kain lichtov kra lo yaharba lo nashim velishtok. In my world, the Torah doesn't need to give me an explanation of why it says things are prohibited. I myself can figure that out and then apply the halachas from there. So in Rabbi Shimon's world, it should have said, don't have many wives and stop. But the Ana Amina, I would have said, Ma tam lo yarba mishum de lo yaser. The reason why you can't have many wives is because your heart will be swayed. So it says lo yaser lamali. So according to Shimon, why the Torah speak out lo yaser, afilu achas, even one. So meaning lo yaber lo nashim, can't have many. Afilu achas, even one umeisira es libo harezeh lo yisena. So just telling you two things: you can't have many wives, and even one who's going to sway your heart below yaser es levavo, you can't marry her either. Ela mani mekayim lo yarba. Well, if you can't even marry one, so then you can't marry more than one. So why did the Torah say lo yarba? If I can't even marry one, why lo yarba? No, to teach you that even if she's not going to sway your heart, she's like Abigail, and therefore you would have thought that as long as she's not going to sway my heart, I can marry more than one. To that we say that that you can't marry even more than one, even if she's like Abigail. Okay. Now here comes a lot about David and then a lot about Shlomo, and we shall probably learn Shmuel and Malachim, get a better understanding. But Hani Shmona Esrei Minalim, where's 18 come from? Arbitrary number, like where's that come from? Dichsev Vayolidu David Banim BeChevron, and born to David were children in Chevron. He was the king of Chevron before he was the king of Yerushalayim. Vayihi Bechoro Amnon Lachinom 1. That's one. The second kid was Kollel Lavigail, Eishes Novel. She was the wife of Novel. HaKarmeli. Hashlishi Avshalom ben Ma'akav. Haravi Adonyahu ben Chokes. V'chamishi Shaftia ben Avital. V'ashishi Yisrael la'agala. Eishes David. Elu Yaldu LeDavid b'Chevron. Okay, so that's 6. The Ka'amr Navi, and then the Navi says much later on, 9 prakim later, V'imat v'osipulach kahena v'kahena. If you had a little, they were added to you, kahena v'kahena. So what does it mean? Many and many. What does that mean? So says the Gemara. So meaning just like you had 6 v'kahena, similarly, you were added on even more, similar to what you already had. So what's similar? Kahena shis, 6 more wives. V'kahena shis, another 6 wives. The Havulei, Kamni Sari. So you got 18 wives. So he had 6 which are explicit. And then in a different parak, the Navi says that the full pasuk is V'atnecha is beis Adonecha, v'es nishei Adonecha b'chekecha. I'm giving to you the wives of your master. Whether you had a little or a lot, kahena v'kahena, similar to what you have already, and similar to what you have already. So that gets you 18. Now we're going to have some other opinions. Masket Ravina, Ema, maybe kahena means similar. So what does that mean? Ema kahena is tarti, sorry. You're right. Kahena means 6 more, like you already have. Vikahena is now similar to what you have right now, which is 12. So you have 6. The kahena is 6 more, that's 12. Vikahena is 12 more. That's 24 wives. Tanyanami Hachia, Bryce supports this. Lo Yarberlo Nashim Yoser Me'esrim Arba. Sounds like one opinion holds. You can have more than 24 wives. So now Leman the Darish Vav, according to the opinions that Darsh and the Vav, Kahena, Vikahena. What's the Vikahena? So you have Kahena. So you have 6. Kahena is going to be 12. The other kahena is going to add, like you just have, that's 20. That's going to be 24. But the extra vav, we're going to double it to arba'im v'shmona havu. And a Brisa supports that opinion that says that you can't have more than 48 wives. Okay. Our Mishnah said only 18. If it's had done my time, what's the reason for our Mishnah? Amr of kahana makish kahena ba'asal kahena kama. We're comparing the last kahena to the first kahena. Ma kahena kama is shis, is similar to what you have already, which is only 6. Af kahena basra, shis. Therefore, that's also only 6. We're comparing the 2 kahenas to be similar to each other. That's how you got to 6 plus 6 plus 6 is going to get you 18. So now, this verse that we just quoted that had David's 6 children, one of the children was born to... was born to Michal. So Bahave Michal, right? You mentioned 6 wives explicitly. But what's with Michal? You never mentioned Michal. So Amarav, look at that 6th wife was called Egla. Did you say Egla? What, like a calf? A little calf? Amarav, Egla zu Michal. Egla, a little calf. A calf, a little calf. I'm not sure exactly how to translate it. Egla zu Michal. So why'd you call her? Yeah, it says calf, a little calf, baby calf. What does it say? Calf. What's a calf? It's a baby. It's a baby calf. No, a baby calf. So v'lama nikra shma Egla. Why do you call her? Why do you call her a calf? I guess you see the ways that we used to compliment back in the day. So shechaviva alav ke'egla. The Michal is precious to him like a calf. V'cheinu omer, we find also another place where such affection is described like that by Shimshon. Lulei charashtim be'eglasi. So lulei charashtim be'eglasi. So he's referring to his wife there. I think there's like a big secret that they're trying to figure out, and his wife told him it, and he refers to as my eglasi, my calf. You see, Shimshon also used that sign of affection. Now, if this is referring to Egla, the beginning of the verse said that David was in Hebron and he had these 6 wives. Now, if Egla means Michal, so says the Gemara, Umi havi leMichal beni. Did Michal have a child? Michal bas sholo haya lavlad. She never had a child. Ad yomo, so until she died. Sounds like she never had children. But if Egla is Michal, sounds like she did have a child. Amar Rav Chisda, ad yomo hayala, biyom moso hayala. It means until the day of her death, she never had a child. On the day she died, she had a child. Okay, so now Michti Banim Heicha Kachashv Lahu Bechevron. That pasuk was interpreting, not interpreting. It said it explicitly that these children were born to David in Hebron. He was the king of Hebron before he was the king of Yerushalayim. The Ilu Ma'aseh the Michal b'Yerushalayim Hava. The whole story with Michal, how he got Michal as a wife, that whole thing happened later on in Yerushalayim. Dichsev Michal b'Shal Nishka b'Ba'ad Chalon. As it says that Michal b'Shal Nishka b'Ba'ad Chalon. She was watching David HaMelech go. The Teres HaMelech David, he was Mefazes u'Mekarker Lifnei Hashem. He was there dancing in front of Hashem. Bativas, and she belittled him. She was she belittled him. She disgraced him. So now, Amar Yehuda v'Tem Rav Yosef shakol samichal le mitrafsa, and therefore she got paid. And therefore she got paid le mitrafsa, that she wasn't able to have children. So at some point, Michal was not able to have any more children. However, that whole story that she couldn't have any more children, that all happened much later. That happened later on. Way after the story, way after when David was king of Hebron. What do you have to say? Ela ema ad oso ma'isa hayala. Until that story, she had a child. That's what it means. It's not that the story tells you she'll never have a child. It means until that story, she had a child. Mikan ve'elech lo hayala. But then she got punished for disgracing David, and therefore she couldn't have any more children. I v'haksiv vayikach David od pilakshim v'nashim b'Yerushalayim. It sounds like David took more wives. He took concubines, v'nashim b'Yerushalayim. So it sounds like he took more. Says the Gemara, no, l'miluyi shmona asra. Just to complete the 18. It wasn't more than 18, just 18. So now, ma'i nashim and ma'i pilakshim. I believe a pilegish concubine, it's gonna be special rules, but I think it's only allowed for a king. I think we prohibit concubines in general. I think it's only a king's allowed to. So what are women? What are wives? And what are concubines? Amr v'idam Rav nashim are b'ksuba u'b'kiddushin. A wife is with a ksuba, and with kiddushin. You have to marry her in one of the three ways that you marry a woman. However, pilakshim is below ksuba or below kiddushin. Them, you can designate them to be your concubine. I think, therefore, they're not allowed to have, they can't marry anybody else either. I mean, a pilag is just like somewhere in the middle. You've designated her to be your wife. You didn't do the formal marriage that's required, but she's still designated to be yours, and therefore she can't be someone else's. And yeah, more to say, but let's keep going. Amar Rav Amar Arba me'os yeladim hayla David. So it doesn't mean that he had 400 children. It means that there were, I think, in his army, 400 of them. The kulan b'nei yifas Torah hayu. Happens to be that all of them were the children of Yifas Torah. We know that when you go to war, so there's a special novelty that you can capture a woman. There's a whole process. You bring her home for a month. She has to grow her hair out, cry for her father, for her mother. The big discussion, she has to convert at some point to marry her. It sounds like you have to convert her, but she doesn't have a status of a full convert until she lives with you for many years, maybe. So it's a whole discussion how exactly someone's unmuted. So it's a whole discussion exactly when she's fully converted, partially converted. So Rashi here says that they're all the children of Yifas Torah before she converted Belev Shalim, before she fully converted. So it's out. Oh no, sorry, that was something else. Yeah, okay. So we'll see more about Yifas Torah in a second. But these 400 were all children of Yifas Torah. Hayu. Umegadle belurios hayu, and they grew their hair very long. the Kulon Yoshin Bekrono Shel Zahav, and they would sit in golden wagons. Umehalchin Beroshe guys, and they would go like the heads of the legions of the army. Hayu, the Haim Hayu Bale Egrofen Shel Beis David. They're like the the big guns in David's army. They were like the serious people. So I think usually you can't grow your hair out very long, but maybe they were allowed to. They were only basifas toar. Not sure exactly, what the idea of growing the hair out. Usually you can't do what the non-Jews do. You can't follow in the non-Jews' ways. Here there was an exception to the rule. Not exactly sure. Okay, now the Amar Yehuda Amar Rav Tamar. Tamar was Bas Yefas Toar. She was the daughter of a Yefas Toar. Ma'aka, her mother, before her mother fully converted, B'leiv Shalom, so she gave birth to Tamar. And now it's considered Yefas. Now, how did David marry a Yefas Toar? She wasn't fully converted. So there's some kind of middle ground over here, where you're enough converted, or you're not fully converted. There's seems like a whole debate in the Rishonim how this works exactly. But David married her, and before, while she was the status of a Yefas Toar, before she was 100% fully converted, so she had a daughter, Tamar. Shenamar ba'ata dibarna melech ki lo yimneini mimcha. So this verse tells you, so now Amnon wanted to marry her. Now he wanted to marry her, and then we're going to go through the whole story about how he got what he wanted. However, what do you mean he wanted to marry her? If she was a daughter, a full-fledged daughter, so then you can't marry your sister. From the fact Amnon really wanted to marry her, and that's why she was permitted to him, because she was only basifas toar. She wasn't meaning her mother converted, and once the mother converted, so then she's not she was a basifas toar, some level of a convert, so therefore they're not technically related. They're not technically related, so therefore we would call them brother and sister, but in halacha they're not brother and sister. Therefore, Amnon wanted very much to marry her. Now, Ula Amnon. So now, more about Amnon. Ula Amnon, Reya Ushmo Yonadav. He was Ben Shima Achi David. So someone named Yonadav, who was David's nephew. David's brother was Shima. This is David's nephew. The Yonadav was Ish Chacham Me'od. So Ula Amnon Reya, he had a friend, Ushmo Yonadav, Ben Shima Achi David. Is Ish Chacham Me'od. Okay, Amar Yehuda, Amar Rav, Ish Chacham Larisha. Wasn't he was wise in a good way? He was wise in a bad way. So let's see. Yomer. So now, the next verse now. Yomer Madua Takacha Dal Ben Amelech. So Amnon's asking Yonadav, I guess Yonadav asked him, why are you so down? Tell me. And Amnon told him that Yomer lo Amnon at Tamar achos Avshalom achi ani ohev. I really love my sister Tamar. I really love her, and I want to marry her. So now Yonadav gave him advice on how to seduce her. Basically, that's why he's called the Ish Chacham Lara. So what did he tell her? Yomer lo Yonadav Shachav al Mishkava. So a whole story. Why don't you go lie down, ask her for food, and then when she comes in, kick everyone else out, and then she's yours. So Ad v'asa le'enai es habirya. That the verse says. Have her come to you, bring you food. V'asa le'enai es habirya. What is v'asa le'enai es habirya? Have her make you a small dish.
Right, food.
Yeah, small dish. Okay. So what happened was she'll take a dish for you and she'll pour for you. So Amar Yehuda Amar Rav, she'asasa lo mine tigun. She should make him what? Mine tigun is different fried cooked foods. Okay. Va'isnena Amnon. So he did this, and then she went in, and then he seduced her. Now, Vayisnena Amnon sina gedola ma'od. This part's a little graphic. Amnon hated her a lot. So the whole thing was she told him, "Don't do this to me. It's gonna make you look very bad," And then she ran out. So simply he hated her because she ran out and she left him and the whole thing. But it sounds like the Gemara is like, why did he really hate her so badly? My time, Amar Yitzchak, Nima Nikshuralo, Vaso Krus Shivcha. There was a hair that she had that she went and tied around his area of procreation and basically chopped it off. He's no longer able to have children. V'hi Nikshuralo, Ihi. What does that mean? How is it? There's a hair that was tied. What does that mean? Ma'i avda ella. So if it tied on its own and it crushed that area, so why does he hate her? Rather, if it got tied onto himself, ihi ma'i avda, what did she do? Ella ima kashralo, ella ema, if to say kashralo, she tied for him from one of the hairs, went and crushed that area. Vasa kro shivcha. Therefore, he hated her, right? So now, ini v'hadar shava ma'idek sev yetelach shem begoyim biyofeich she'en lehem livnos yisrael lo se'ar beis hasechi v'lo beis ha'erva. Amazing thing, around the time of the first Beis Hamikdash, women didn't have any hair in that area or any hair in their armpit. It was a level of beauty. Once we went on a decline after the first Beis Hamikdash, then we lowered ourselves. This is another beautiful proof that the physical beauty is paralleling the spiritual beauty. That's what they say when the imos are called yafos mara in the Torah. It's a sign of their spiritual beauty, not just their physical beauty. Okay, so either way, how did she have this? So shiny tamar the basifas toar have. Yeah, well, she was a basifas toar, so she did have those hairs that other women didn't have. Okay. So now vatikach tamar.
Doesn't make sense.
Why not?
Sorry, I mean, like if people didn't have hair,
Beautiful women. It was a sign of beauty.
I didn't grow hair. Sorry,
The 10 miracles in the Beis Hamikdash make sense.
what's that?
The constant 10 miracles. Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
Sorry, my head is.
Okay, but Tikach, you're right. It's hard for us to understand these things nowadays. Correct. But Tikach Tamar Ephra Rosha, Tamar left, did an amazing thing. She put ashes on her head, and she wore Tonas Pasim, same language as Yosef, interesting. Wore this cloak, Asher Leha, and the cloak that she had on her, she tore. Basically, she ran outside like a mourner, totally like an awful. Tana Mishin Rabbi Shua ben Korcha. Geder Gadol Gadra Tamar Ba'osor Shah. She made an amazing fence for all future women at that time. So Ba'osor Shah Amru, they said women saw her run out with ash on her head and the torn garments. Amru Libanos Malachim Kach Libanos Hedyot Alachas Kama V'Kama. If this would happen to a woman such stature, how much more so we should not do these kinds of things. Look what happened to her after she was secluded with a man. So Imlet Snuos Kach, such modest women like Tamar. So then Kach Leprutz like Alachas Kama V'Kama, people who are less tsanua, less modest, for sure we shouldn't do these things. Look what happened to her. So basically, she made it that everyone saw the result of such an act, and they didn't want to do it. Amr V'Amar Rabba Oso Shah Gazru. Stop more alone. Gazru ala Yichud. They established halacha of Yichud, the ala Pnuya Yichud. So it says the Gemara said then they established it Yichud Daraisahu. So Yichud is Daraisa. It's not the Rabbana. Dam Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon Ben Yotzadak. Remez Lichud Min Torah Minayin. How do I know? And the Kiddushin, how do I know that Yichud is biblical? Because it says by someone who tries to convince someone else, called a mesis, to go off the derech, to go commit avodah zarah. It says very interesting. If your brother, the son of your mother, convinces you to do avodah zarah, then it's called a mesis. Says the Gemara, really? The chi ben em mesis and ben av eno mesis. It's only if the son of your mother convinces you to do avodah zarah, then he's in trouble. But not if it's the son of your father. Must be elalamar lacha ben misyachid im imo. Fascinating that the remez for yichud comes from this whole story of avodah zarah. It could be because we saw with Shlomo Melech, right? He married these women. They swayed his heart. It's interesting. Yeah. So that it teaches you from here that a son is allowed to have yichud with his mother. The ein acher misyached im kol haraya shebetorah. A son and a mother, they have forbidden relation to each other. They can't be together, but they're allowed to have yichud with each other. So to a father and a daughter. But other people cannot seclude themselves with people that they are forbidden to. So what does it mean? Ela ema gazru al yichud de pnuya. Of course, if you're married already, that is biblical. But for a single man and a single girl to to be secluded with each other, that is what they were gozer already early in the time of David HaMelech. Va'adonya ben Chagis misnase lemor ani emloch. Adonya, David's son, I'm going to be the king. There was a certain size of head that the crown fit David, and the tradition was that whoever's going to be next in king, it's going to fit him. And Adonia wanted to take over the Malchus instead of Shlomo. However, the crown didn't fit him. Either means physically it didn't fit him, right? Also, he wasn't also fit for the kingship. That's why it didn't fit him. The Yaslo Rechev. So now all of a sudden he had a Rechev who Parshim v'chamishim ish ratzim lefanov. So it sounds like Adonia had a chariot and 50 men running in front of him. So it says in Ma'ir Rebusa. That's very normal for people of kingship to have such things, chariots and people running. Amar Yehuda Marav Kula Netule Tachul v'chakuke kifos raglaim hayu. I don't know when Netule Tachul. I wasn't able to figure it out. It's there's something under your knee that you put a lot of pressure on when you run, and they took a special potion and they removed that from you. I don't know, how's it translated? Techule.
Lacking spleens and having carved soles.
Lacking spleens and carved soles. Those things that prevent you from running very fast, apparently your the spleens and your carved soles, that they didn't have. So you see, he had amazing people that would run and they never got injured, and all their running they never got they never had knee problems. That was never a problem for Adonia, and that's why it's teaching you that it wasn't just anybody running. It was unique. Lo yaber lo nashim, says the Mishnah, ala kedei markafto. So you cannot have so many horses, only the amount you need for your chariot. V'kesev v'zahav lo yaber lo, a king can't have this, and a king cannot have an increase of silver and gold. V'kesev lo yaber lo ma'od, ala kedei litan aspanya, only to pay the amount he needs to pay his soldiers, their wages. V'kosev lo sefer Torah l'shmo. He has to write his own sefer Torah. Yotzel l'mechama motzi'imo. When he goes out to war, he takes it with him. Nichnas hu machnis imo. When he goes inside, he takes it with him. Yoshe bedin he imo. When he sits in judgment, it's with him. I thought we said that a king can't be a judge. Okay. Mesev he kinegdo. It's I guess when he has to judge, like for people that have capital punishment. Not that he's sitting in the bezdin, but when he's judging any case of anything in the Jewish people, it's there with him. Shenamar, as the verse says in Devarim, Haisem Okara Bo Kol Yimei Chayav. Has to be with him. He has to read it. Has to be with him wherever he goes, inside, outside, and
King can adjudicate monitoring.
Okay. So Tanar Rabbanon says in a brayso, Yarbelo Susim, he cannot have for himself an increase of horses. Yachol afilu kedei merkaftu uprashav tamalomar lo enomar avamar behu kedei rachvo uparshav. So it says he shouldn't have for him. So you would have thought maybe he can add on to his chariots. So Talmud Lomer, no, it says low. So for himself he cannot increase, but he can only increase for what he needs. For his own, showing off his riches, that he can't have. What he needs for his, if he needs more chariots, things like that, that he can do. So basically, the necessities, yes. The extras, no. So
Good for the arms.
Good for them. Right. So it's opposite nowadays. Nowadays, everybody's rich, buys 100 mansions and shows it all off and gets more. The exact opposite. The exact opposite. Our richest person, most great person, is the exact opposite. So Hamani Mekayim, but it says Susim. So but it says you can have many horses. What do you do with that? Susim habatlonim. What it means is you shouldn't have horses that just do nothing. Just sit around and do nothing. If you're gonna have a horse, don't have the Cybertruck just sitting in your driveway. If you're gonna have it, use it, right? So minayin shafilu sus echad. How do I know that even one horse, v'hu batal shehu below yarbe, you'll be over the isser of not having an increase? Talmud lomer leman harbos sus. It says you can't even have one extra horse. One extra horse just to show off. Look, I have an extra horse. It's very pretty. So has a name and everything. If even one horse I can't have, just to show off, and what I need the word susim. The other part says I can't have many horses. Obviously not. So it says lav below stase. You get smashed twice. Just to teach you an ed, you get an extra lav. If you have extra horses, extra punishment. Lav below stase al kol sus v'sus. Every extra horse you have is an additional punishment. You buy 100 extra horses from Home Depot, wherever you get horses from. Yes, probably not Home Depot. It's 100 extra lavin. Time of the country, if you didn't say low, what would you have thought? I feel rachvo who prosha. I could have had extra for me to ride around in. So we said a few rachvo who prosha nami low. We said no, lo tzikalav fushe. Low you could have. You could have for your own necessities that you could have, but to have more than that you cannot have. The kesef is zavol yar below ela kedelitin Espanya. You can only have enough gold and silver to pay your soldiers. Tan rabbanon the kesef zavol yar below. You can't have more. Yachol if you look kedelitin Espanya. Tanamar lo enomar rav amar behu kedelitin Espanya. For yourself, you can't have an increase of silver and gold, but to give to your soldiers, that you can have as much as you need to give them. Nami lo. If you didn't have low, you'd have thought that what? You can't even give your soldiers? How could that be? No. Lo tzricha leharvacha. I can't have extra. But of course, whatever I need to give them, of course, I could give to them. So, hash the amris lo l'drasha. So then, now they use the word lo to interpret something. So, lo yarbel lo nashim ma'i darishpe lemuute hedyotos. You can't have extra to himself. You can't have wives. So, ma'i darashtabe lemuute hedyotos. It's coming to exclude hedyotos. That a regular person can have more wives, but a king cannot have more wives. Okay.
Just go.
Yashkoa.